Welcome, everybody, to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and I have the fine fortune of sitting in today with two of my favorite people on this campus. We'll first start off by introducing Nightly News reporter Laura Lee. Thank you very much for joining us today, Laura.
Thank you for having me.
You are quite welcome. Laura is working diligently with our broadcasting initiative, working with the basketball commentary, which we're doing. She's very much looking forward to being our sideline reporter, and so she is very, very much looking forward to that. As we record, we will be doing our first commentary this evening, so the next time we join you, we'll talk a little bit more about that. And of course, we are joined every month by one of our favorite people. Now, before I introduce Adrienne, I must point out that typically fans of the podcast would know Adrienne as the Student Activities Director. I'm going to have to catch myself going forward how I introduce you, because that is no longer your title, Adrienne. You are now the Director of Student Engagement, so we must first congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
And we'd like to welcome you to the podcast.
Glad to be here, as always.
Well, let's start with that promotion. Off air, we were just having this conversation. We usually record with you a couple days before, and we always have you on the first podcast before the beginning of the next month. So last month when you were talking about January events. I called you Student Activities Director, and then it just so happened the next day in Central Station, there's this wonderful article about how you've been promoted to the Director of Student Engagement. So Adrienne, tell me about what that means, how your role has changed, or is it going to change, and maybe just fill us in on what that means.
So first of all, let me say to the students, even with the new title, you are still going to see me at the student activities and planning things and going on the field trips and the things like that we have been doing and that we will continue to do. So that part's going to remain the same. But one thing that is going to increase in the scope of this new position is we really want to, so you're a knight, right? Laura's a knight. And what does that mean? Like, we want to make sure that it has all of that tradition and all that energy behind it to really give you the experience of being a Central Penn Knight. So I'm going to hopefully be strategizing and coming up with some ways to really increase that school spirit and engagement, not just with students, but how can I connect you to your faculty and staff outside of the classroom? How can I connect you to our administrators and really look at the big picture and just really build that nightlife?
One of the things that we often talk about between just you and I and conversations that are had around the campus is how important it is for our professors and staff members to be a part of campus events. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that that's such an important initiative that you're going to be working toward here, is trying to get the faculty and staff to come out to some more of these events?
I'm going to go back to my own college experience, and I think of all of the amazing things that I learned from not only, I think of my faculty and staff, I think of when I was in student government, when I was a student and my advisor in that program. I learned so much from them through the traditional ways, but then those moments where my faculty advisor took me out for coffee, or the time when my advisor for SGA, actually came to a conference with us and we shared that experience, and it just truly connects you to them as people, a whole different level, and I think it just really adds to the experience. I
think that, and Laura, maybe you can speak to this, I think that that's part of why I enjoy doing this podcast with students, because for someone like Laura, who might just know me maybe before she joined the Nightly News just as a professor, she probably has a different outlook of me in my personal life, and not only opportunities that we have together in the classroom, but maybe not quite sure about some opportunities that are available outside of the classroom. I remember back to my college days, and one of the fondest memories that I have is when I got one of my favorite professors to come on my radio show that we had. I still remember that to this day.
That's awesome.
I still talk to him to this day, and I've actually been able to digitize some of that material, and I've actually been able to send him CDs, and that's something that just, it spoke to me, because at the time, I never really thought of that being an educational experience, but that opportunity that I had with him, he was actually a geology instructor, very, very into conservation of natural resources. So we talked about that, and ever since then, it's really changed my outlook on things. So not only is it, when we're in the classroom, it's just kind of a different setting, a student to faculty, but then when we have these opportunities to work outside, I think it can be beneficial. Yeah. What are your opinions, Laura? I mean, I know it's got to be difficult when you're in the classroom, because there is a particular particular way classes end up going, but what might it mean to you to hang out with, even with someone like Adrienne, who you respect? Like, have you had experiences to hang out with Adrienne?
She was the cross country. We did that. We was
Oh,
running.
yes. Laura did an amazing job in cross country this past season.
And that stuff like that, like that was good for me because it brought me closer with Adrienne too, along with my teammates and stuff. Because Adrienne was just like, y'all got this, y'all got to do this. And we were just all doing it together. It was exciting, and it was definitely a good experience though. Yeah, it is different from seeing her do the activities and stuff like that, like structure that, but then her being with us, running with us as well. Like it just was like, yes.
That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. So, Adrienne, from the Nightly News, we'd absolutely love to congratulate you on your new position and hope that if there's ever anything we can help you with in terms of helping to engage our students, you know that we will always do that. Moving on, we have a few things that we want to talk about in terms of outside of Adrienne's Feature 3, which is everybody's favorite segment, which will be coming up here later in the podcast. There's 3 things that we want to talk about prior to that, sort of a bigger picture look at some things that are going on. The first thing I would like to talk about is the Central Penn College Education Foundation Scholarship Essay Contest. This will open on February 4th and conclude on March 1st.
So if you are a student, put that on your calendar. Do this.
Any information about this can be found starting February 4th at foundation.centralpenn.edu. You'll be able to apply for the scholarship, and you'll be able to put in your response to the question, the prompt that's being offered. Certainly more information about that is you can listen to our previous podcast when we had the Education Foundation. But Adrienne, as somebody who's trying to get our students engaged here on campus, what might a scholarship do to help students stay on campus?
Well, a scholarship, first of all, maybe that's a few less hours they need to work during the week. Maybe they can then take off a night to go to the women's leadership retreat or, experience that. So I think, first of all, it's free money. It's worth investing that time to write the essay response. And it's helping to pay for your education. It's less money you'll have to pay back later.
Well, and what's interesting too, Adrienne, is, part of my job in the Nightly News, we have tons of opportunities as well. So for me, it's trying to figure out how can I get students engaged in what we have going on as part of the larger campus view. One of the things that I hear constantly from people when I'm offering opportunities is, I can't because I have to work. And to get even $500, which is the minimum award, and awards range from $500 to $2,000, that money could make a big difference in somebody not having to work, as you mentioned, those extra hours, and then be able to engage on campus. One of the things that I try to share with people all the time, and look, I have no issue saying this. I've worked in the restaurant business for a long time. I've worked in retail. I've done all those things.
Retail.
In a bigger picture, you can put the experiences that you have, whether it's restaurant, retail, or other types of work our students are doing, but they're missing out on opportunities to add real-world experience to their resume. For example, Laura, and I'm going to use you here as a particular example. If you were having to work a full-time job, let's say, you wouldn't be able to do things like be a sideline reporter.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you if, let's say, you were awarded a big scholarship? What would that mean to you in terms of maybe how much less you'd be able to work and maybe how much more you'd be able to engage on campus?
From the school perspective, like say even just getting it from the school, like that would mean a lot that I got chosen and stuff like that they care enough to, give the students this opportunity. But if I was working and I got that, and that mean I can take some days off, I can relax, I don't got to pay my school stuff this term or something like that, that would mean a lot. Like it would mean a whole lot. Like that's a break, that's a breath of fresh air for a student. It's always homework. Like my friends, I don't work, but my friends just like work, homework, work, homework, work, homework, and I'm just like, do y'all got time to live a little? Like.
Well, and not only that, Laura, you aspire to be in broadcasting, and you're a natural. You aspire to be in broadcasting. If you are having to work and have to stress so much about working so much, that might deter you, or that might prevent you from being able to do some awesome things that we're doing with the Nightly News.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. I also do want to point out that, Laura, you were chosen for a scholarship previously. So it's obvious that many people here believe in you and trust that you're doing a wonderful job here on campus. But to Adrienne's point, to Laura's point, if this is a way that our students can even just take a day off of work and not feel so much stress, because frankly, these types of things are fun.
Yeah.
Like, you might be a little nervous, and I'm nervous to call this game. I'm not going to lie to you.
Oh, I'm ready to step out.
And that's what I'm saying is, to you, this is fun.
Yeah.
And even though it's adding experience to your resume, it's still fun. So I personally have fun coming to work, but a lot of our students may not necessarily truly are passionate about the places that they work. This gives them an opportunity to potentially engage even more. So to have people do these scholarship essays, Adrienne, actually could end up helping your cause in the long run if you think about it. So we do want to again point out, February 4th, foundation.centralpenn.edu will open the scholarship essay contest. That's twice a year, winter and summer. So always mark that on your calendars. Another thing that quickly, Adrienne, I want to talk about is the CPEC Job Fair that's coming up on February the 19th. The CPEC Job Fair will be held at the Radisson. It's called the Radisson Harrisburg. It's in Camp Hill. I've had a lot of people say, well, why is it the Radisson in Harrisburg and it's in Camp Hill and not Harrisburg? And I can't honestly answer that question. A lot of times, they'll attach their name to the largest city that's close. And to be honest, the Radisson's probably a minute from Harrisburg, just across the bridge. So maybe that's why they do it. But so this is just something I want to put out a quick PSA for. You can always reach out to Steve Hassinger at centralpenn.edu. Steve will be with us in a future podcast to talk a little bit more about CPEC, but I really just want students to make sure that they put this job fair on their calendar. Laura, I want to ask you, you were at a previous job fair with us. And you were only, I believe, either a freshman or like sophomore at the time.
Yeah.
So the number one question that I get from students because I require my students to do this, we're going again this term, is, well, I'm a freshman. Why would I want to go to a job fair and I'm not even close to seeking a job? Can you just share some things that maybe you learned from that first experience at a job fair that might help you in future job fairs or future job search?
It was a lot of jobs that I didn't even know was around here. I'm just like, I'm thinking it's probably jobs up the hill, it's Giants and stuff like that, but it's like a bigger, like it give you a broader, a variety, and it's a good experience to go. But before, I didn't have a car, and I was like, I want a job. Like I'm interested in some of these places, but it's like that's a bit much for me right now to try to be full forced into it. But I would say now when we go, I'm going to be like, really engaged because I have a car and I can get there and I want to work now.
I think that you make a really good point there. Part of, and this is just higher education as a whole, Adrienne, and I want to get your feedback on this. One of the things that I think higher education as a whole struggles with is career knowledge, career development. I'm not talking about from a classroom perspective, but what I am talking about is exposing students to what careers exist after graduation. I'm trying to always be very transparent on these podcasts. I struggled finding work when I left school, partially because I don't think that my professors prepared me for all of the different types of jobs that were out there. I think that if nothing else, job fairs can be used as an educational experience for, to Laura's point, showing students where all of the jobs exist in the area and the types of different jobs. Do you have that same kind of thought process from your experiences in college?
Well, I fully admit I did not take advantage of things like this when I was a student, and I should have. I was a communications major, and when I graduated, everything up to that point had been, I got into the school I wanted to go to, I got into the clubs I wanted to be. Like, I never expected, I might have to work to get a job in my field. I didn't even consider it. So when I graduated and started applying, I really struggled. It took me about a year to find a job in my field. I ended up working at a dentist's office, which I really enjoyed, and they were wonderful gave me a lot of great opportunity to use some of my communication skills in my position there. But I didn't know. And I truly wish I would have really embraced opportunities like this to really be able to reach out and find out the opportunities that were out there for me.
While you might admit and maybe your own shortcoming in that regard, and I will as well, because I didn't take advantage of any of these, I never also then had a professor that was pushing us to go. And that is, to me, okay, you can have the knowledge that, okay, hey, there's a job fair. But a lot of, like, for me, when I heard about job fairs when I was at Slippery Rock, it was, I don't need that. I'm a sophomore. But to me, that is the sort of the culture that I'm trying to shift in at least at a minimum, the people who I can speak with in front of the classroom, and how important it is to go to job fairs from day one, just to get that experience, to start making those connections. I just think it's so important. And if anyone out there is listening, you have to make sure that you make it a point to go to CPEC on February the 19th. What's unique about this particular job fair is that this is the largest job fair that Central Penn College is affiliated with on a yearly basis. This is part of a consortium, which is we partner with more than a dozen schools in our local area, and this is a job fair for all of those schools, which means that you are going to get many, many more companies in this larger space than we would for even like our summer internship fair or our fall job fair that we have here on campus. So I think that if you're going to go to any of them, CPEC should be the one. So I just wanted to put that out there. That is on February 19th. It is from 10 to 3. You certainly do not have to stay the same time. Frankly, most students are there for anywhere between an hour to an hour and a half.
But it is good. I think typically we think, okay, we're this major, and that equates to this job. It's this and then this. And we don't realize that it really could be many other different places. It doesn't have to just be, I'm in communications major, so I'm going to be a print journalist. It could be working at the accounting firm. It could be working at, I'm trying to think of a completely different field, but it could be completely unrelated to the field. But that position in that specific subset is a need. So
every business has a communication department.
Absolutely.
Period. Even small businesses are now having to hire people to help with their public relations, their social media. So really, it's more to me about what company do you want to work for, and then start figuring out if that particular company has use for your skill set, which many of them will. I always use an example, Hershey Foods. We all know Hershey's. We all love Hershey's, unless, of course, you're maybe allergic to chocolate or something.
I know. I can smell those peanut butter cups just talking about it.
So the thing about Hershey's is literally almost any major they have jobs for, even in communication. They have a really strong public relations team that's actually hired some of our students in the past. So to me, it's more about what company do you want to work for, network with that company, and that's going to start building the connections that students need. One final thing that I'd like to mention before we get into Adrienne's Featured 3 is I am very fortunate to have been selected for the Faculty Colloquium Series. Brian Christiana, the president of the Nightly News, will be interviewing me later on in this podcast about the Faculty Colloquium Series that's on February the 6th from 12:30 to 1:30 in the Capitol Blue Cross Theater. So please stay tuned for more information about that. I just want to say that I'm extremely honored to have been selected for this. I've been doing a ton of research. As many of you know, I've been trying to get into a PhD program. So part of that was a writing sample. I basically had to do a 25-page paper about a particular subject. So I chose...
That is definitely a sample. Wow.
It took a few months for me to do, in addition to all other things I'm doing. But, it's all going to work out in the end. But what's
good luck. That's exciting.
Thank you. What's very exciting about this was... the Center for Teaching Excellence sent something out recently that was asking for presenters about recent research you've been doing. I said, hey, I've been doing research for the last 6 months. I would love to share that. And it worked out perfectly. So please consider joining me on. And the Center for Teaching Excellence. We will also be giving out 2 student scholarships as well. So I'm happy to be a part of that and present the research that I've been working on over the past about 6 months. So that's the Faculty Colloquium Series. That'll be Wednesday, February the 6th at 12:30. So please join me. One thing, too, I did want to point out for our Lancaster students, I noticed now that you are doing a Lancaster events calendar.
Yes.
So I just did want to point that out. So not only is the student events calendar available for Summerdale, there's also one that's available for Lancaster as well, which I think is a wonderful thing. So if you're in Lancaster, make sure you grab that student activities calendar.
Please do. Lancaster, we love you too. So hopefully we'll get to connect with you a little bit more in the future.
Fantastic. So, Adrienne, it's now time for everybody's favorite segment, Adrienne's Featured 3. What is event number 1 on Adrienne's Featured 3 for February?
Get your chants ready. BEARS, 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 Bears. I won't do the whole thing. But we are going to go to the Hershey Bears game on February 16th. we have found an awesome opportunity to get our students in for just $6.
And that's incredible, Adrienne. A typical face value of the tickets anywhere between and this is upstairs, anywhere from $20 to $22. So you're talking about 25% of the price to get into a Bears game. Fantastic.
And if they do choose to bring guests, or if faculty and staff want to go, bring their families, we do have guest tickets available for $16. So
and that's still a heck of
a great deal. So we're going to do that. They do need to sign up in advance. There's a link in Student Central. You can catch it there, and you'll be able to pay right online and get set to go.
Okay, Adrienne. So Hershey Bears, that'll be on Saturday, February the 16th. They're playing the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. What is the second event on Adrienne's Feature 3 for February?
This is a collaboration between the Student Activities Office and Professor Bixler, our theater director. We are doing a production of the Vagina Monologues, with which Miss Laura Lee is cast in. We're excited to have her on the stage.
I'm excited to be on.
We just officially fully cast the show last night, so we're doing our run through next week. But for those that aren't familiar, the Vagina Monologues it's a piece written by Eve Ensler, who took the time to interview a series of women related to their vaginas, experiences that they've had. And some of the stories they shared were very sad. Some of them are very tough to hear, but others are very funny and very positive and uplifting. And Eve Ensler put these pieces together in a series of monologues, and the whole piece as a whole is designed to empower women and promote ending violence against women and girls. Beautiful piece. We've done it here. We did it a couple of years ago. We're excited to bring it back again for 2019. The cast is going to be amazing. It's going to be a great show, and it will benefit the YWCA Carlisle.
Okay, so I just have a couple questions, but I don't want to move off of this point yet. First and foremost, there is a preview of it on the 20th of February in the Capitol Blue Cross Theater at 12:30. Is there a cost with that?
No, the preview will be free. The show itself will be $3 for students and $10 for faculty, staff, community.
So, and that show will take place on Thursday, February 21st at 7:30 in the Capitol Blue Cross Theater. So I did want to point out that portions of the proceeds are going to the YWCA. And so we're really, really looking forward to this opportunity. I do want to go to you, Laura. Laura, you first of all, you have been a star in some of our previous theatrical performances. Which theater performances have you been involved with?
I did the stand up and speak out one, and I sung a few songs.
And who knew you had such a wonderful voice?
She has an amazing voice.
I mean, Jackie was with me, and she's like, "Who's that?" I said, "Oh, that's only one of my greatest students." So, what was it about this particular show that really spoke to you and made you want to follow through? Because this is a big time commitment.
Yeah. So it's like, I really didn't know much about it. I'm like, Vagina Monologues, well, what is this? Like, what's going on? And then I got Bixler this term, and she was explaining it to me, and I'm like, oh, okay. Then I talked to my mom, and she's like, oh, yeah, I heard it. Like, I heard of something like that before. And I'm like, okay, so I just might, go look and see what's going on. So I went, and them stories is like, they was crazy. I'm reading them just like, wow. I never heard or seen anybody express just the way that they did. It was so like vivid, like you could just see it in your head. Like, it was just crazy. And I'm reading, and I'm like, this is decent kind of, but it's a little weird, but it's decent. Mm-hmm. I'm excited to do it though. I'm ready to see everybody reactions and expressions.
Is there any of your family that's going to be able to come up and see you?
My mom probably going to come. My mom and dad, they probably all going to come.
That's awesome.
It's crazy.
Well, I hope it's a packed house. And we have one more part of Adrienne's Featured 3 for the month of February, one I'm very excited to hear about.
This one's going to be awesome. We had two members of our staff, Mary Beth, who's in our foundation office, and Dan Garissi, who's one of our student success coaches, are teaming up to do a cooking class in our multipurpose room. I'm so excited about this because they're going to be making and teaching you guys how to make baked ziti, salad brownies, and of course you get to eat it at the end, which will be super delicious. But I think it's going to be a fun way to use that space and give them an opportunity to get to know you guys, and it should be fun.
I really think it's going to be like a good turnout.
So the Cooking with Dan and Mary Beth will take place on February the 28th. That'll start at 4:30. Adrienne did mention that sign-up is required. There will be something in Student Central that'll be going out. Yep. And, of course, for anything that we talk about, you can always email Adrienne at adriennethoman@centralpenn.edu. I did want to point out that we actually just had one of our club meetings in the NPR, and we really enjoyed it. It was a lot less formal than our typical meetings. I cooked for everybody. Granted, it was only grilled cheese and tomato bisque.
It was a good grilled cheese and tomato bisque. Bisque.
I mean,
I
it's
went in there. They like, I love it. It's good. Laura, go get it.
It's the least I can do. I wanted to show the club appreciation and show them I'm a normal guy too.
I think he's setting the club advisor bar up a
Real
little
high,
high.
okay?
Yeah.
That's not my
He's up
intention.
here.
SGA is going to start complaining I'm not cooking anything for them.
I just want my students in the club to understand that not only do I really appreciate their efforts, I know that they struggle often, not just in our club, but nationwide with food insecurity, running out of meal money. So it's the least I can do. And honestly, all that stuff I bought, and I had a lot of stuff, it was only like $35, and we do a lot of fundraising, so I'm fine to take that out of the club budget. The club is too, and we had more than enough to eat yesterday. So I really hope that some of the other clubs use the NPR. And Adrienne, I love the fact that you are developing some programming in there. I'm not going to hold myself to it, but at some point, I know that people love the fact that I cook a lot of soups. Maybe one of these days I'll teach some students how to make soup, because basically all soup is the same. It's just, all soup is carrots, celery, onion, make a roux, and then it's what you add there that makes the soup, right?
I think we're going to hold him to this. He's saying, "Oh, don't hold me to it," but I think we're going to hold him to this.
Yeah.
Let me get through basketball season in terms of because we're doing some of the basketball
All right,
games.
we can do
but
that much.
After that, yes, we can figure something out. If this is like a monthly or bi-monthly program, I promise you that I would be happy to come down and do this. So, well, I got to tell you, this has been a wonderful podcast. Been always such a pleasure to have the both of you on. I do want to do a quick recap of some of the things that we discussed, and just for Adrienne's sake, I'm going to try my best to go in chronological order. On February 4th, the Education Foundation Scholarship Contest opens, and it will close on March the 1st, so please mark February 4th on your calendar. My Faculty Colloquium Series will be on February 6th at 12:30. We will tune in after the break, and Brian Christiana will be interviewing me about that. You can also expect Hershey Bears hockey against the Lehigh Valley Phantoms on Saturday, February the 16th. The CPEC Job Fair will take place at the Radisson Harrisburg in Camp Hill on February 19th from 10 to 3. The Vagina Monologues take place in the Capitol Blue Cross Theater. There'll be a preview on the February 20th at 12:30. And there will be the full show on February 21st at 7:30. Finally, Cooking with Dan and Mary Beth. That'll be February the 28th at 4:30 in the NPR. And sign up is required for Cooking with Dan and Mary Beth. How's that sound?
Sounds pretty good. What do you think, Laura?
Went right down the line.
That's a mouthful, I got to tell you. Well, again, thank you both very much for being here. Laura, it's always a pleasure for you to get involved with the Nightly News, and I just appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you.
And I almost said it. I'm
still
Student
working on it,
Activities
too.
Director. The Director of Student Engagement, Adrienne Thoman. First of all, congratulations on your promotion.
Yes.
Well deserved. And always, we just appreciate your time coming down and talking about what we have going on campus.
Always thank you for having me.
You're quite welcome. All right, everybody, as I mentioned, I'll be right back with Brian Christiana. He'll be interviewing me about my Faculty Colloquium Series. But for this segment, for Laura Lee, for Director of Student Engagement, Adrienne Thoman, this is Professor Paul Miller, and we'll be right back with the Nightly News Podcast.
Hey guys, it's Community Relations Coordinator Curtis Volker, and you're tuned in to the Nightly News Podcast.
Hello everyone, this is Brian Christiana, and we are here on the Nightly News Podcast. The tables have shifted a little bit, so today I am going to be hosting, and I am honored, again, to be here with the instructor of the Media Studies, the Communication Program Coordinator, and the host of the Nightly News Podcast, Professor Paul Miller. Professor, how is it? How's your day so far?
Always a wonderful day. I love the fact that I'm able to do a podcast as part of my job. I did want to point something out, just so people out there don't think I'm entirely vain. We do have the Research Colloquium Series participant down each and every term. It just so happens to be me this term. So.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool thing. February 6th at 12:30 in the Capitol Blue Cross Theater. Professor, you just said about your colloquium. What will the theme be of your speech?
Well, Brian, it's interesting because in some way, you actually sort of inspired me to do this particular colloquium series. And what I mean by that is this is something that came from last year's 2018 Research Exhibition Day. When we were in our club meetings, when we were talking about what we wanted to do, we came up with this idea about the idea of the echo chamber, the social media echo chamber. And Brian, we'll talk a little bit more about what that means.
Yes.
But it's interesting because the main reason that I started and really started researching this is for necessity.
Yes.
I just was accepted. I haven't told a whole lot of people about this, but I have been accepted into my PhD program at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. I will be starting in August. So I'm very, very looking forward to that. Where this came from, though, was as part of the process, I had to do a writing sample. I've been writing as a, journalist in a way for years, but I've never really written long-form research papers in probably about a decade.
Yeah.
And so we just got done doing the research on, as a club, for the social media echo chamber. We actually finished. We won the
audience favorite,
and what was the other one?
Second place for the best poster.
Right. So we won second place, and we won audience favorite. And so just from what you guys were doing, I had some excellent sources. So I actually was able to use some of the sources as a way to start my paper. I completed my paper. It ended up being about 25 pages.
Yeah.
And I ended up being accepted. So last term, the CTE, which is now run by people in the library, Karen Jury, Diane Porterfield, and Samantha Bice, reached out to faculty and asked if anybody was interested in doing this. And I said, I was on the fence about it at first because, I got so much going on.
Yeah, with the Nightly News Media Club, baseball, basketball, all that stuff.
But I said to myself, you know what? I've just done some research. This is exactly what they're looking for. So I sent over my abstract and I was selected.
That's great. That is honestly great because last term they had Megan Ream. She talked about math and all that fun stuff.
And I got to give Megan credit. That was one of the most interesting presentations that I've ever seen. It was so fascinating. And trust me, I'm not a math connoisseur by any means, but what she did was just really, really enlightening, and I learned so much. And honestly, it's going to be tough for me to even come close to the impact she had.
She had a really good audience there, the students and a lot of faculty, staff. A lot of people came out to that, so it was really impressive.
I was happy to see that, and I'm hoping at a minimum that I have half of how many people that she has.
I honestly think that you will, and I think that the people are starting to become more supportive, starting to get involved more on campus.
I love it.
But the good thing about the social media echo chamber and the research exhibition, I think that had a lot to do with us winning Club of the Year. Not gonna lie.
I'm sure there's a lot that goes into that. I don't have any particular insight into that, but I do think and am very proud of not, because to be honest with you guys, other than maybe helping you with a couple sources and maybe helping put the board together, I had really nothing to do with the project. You guys really took it and ran with it.
Yeah, we met a lot. We got we went to that poster board party. There was a total of I think 4 or 5 of us, and that whole day was just a fun experience, and we learned a lot.
Yeah, and I to be honest, you kind of inspired me to look more at this particular subject. And you know what, Brian, long term, say this is something I do my dissertation on, it may have all come from that research exhibition that we started with back in 2018.
And we're looking forward to the next one, so...
Well, it's coming up in the spring, so we might have to find a new topic.
Yes, sir. And Professor Miller, do you want to let everyone know what the social media echo chamber is?
Of course, yes. We're doing all this talking about the social media echo chamber, and you listeners might say, what in the world is this guy talking about? Well, there's sort of 2 stages here. Let's first, before we bring the social media component in, let's first talk about what an echo chamber is. An echo chamber is where you believe a certain way, and the easiest way to talk about this is with politics. You believe a certain way, you watch, listen to, or read news that confirms the viewpoint you already have.
Yes.
So, for example, if you are a Republican and you watch Fox News and don't expose yourself to any other news outlets, Fox News is going to confirm the biases you already have. It's called confirmation bias.
Yes.
That's a big part of it. And so the idea of the echo chamber has been around for years. If you listen to if you're a Democrat and you listen to liberal sources, it's going to confirm and even reinforce some of the biases that you may already have. You're not getting the entire picture. Why this is such a problem now is, again, a perfect example is the 2016 election. And this is a little preview of what I'm going to be talking about in my presentation. 2016 election seemed to most to be one of the most polar and polarizing elections in the history of our country.
It brought out the worst in people, honestly. Like, we can talk about a little bit about Facebook. People deleted each other as friends just because of politics.
Interestingly enough, Brian, I'm glad you mentioned that. And I didn't even prompt you to bring this up. That was one of the key studies that I looked at. There was a study about how those individuals who, let's say they were Hillary supporters, and if they unfriended or deleted people who were Trump supporters.
Yeah.
And that's a serious problem because, as you know, Brian, in journalism, the main goal for journalists is to try our best. It's not ever possible to be totally neutral.
But that is the goal. That is the goal.
That is the goal. The problem with the echo chamber is if people resist opposite viewpoints.
Yes.
Because and I use this example in class literally this morning. It's like if you have two friends who are fighting and arguing with one another, and then you go and ask one of the friends what happened, and they give you their side of the story, but you don't ask the second person their side, you're probably going to
side with that person.
Absolutely. And that is on a most basic level, the way to look at it. So when you take it to the next step, the problem that the social media echo chamber brings is the fact that social media channels, and I use Facebook a lot, but it's not just Facebook, it's Twitter, it's Instagram, it's even Google, which you can argue about the idea that it's a social media.
Hey, I mean, there's another thing talking about like Facebook and all that. We will discuss, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, clickbaiting.
Certainly.
Oh, that has so much to do with the politic talk, especially.
Fake news, certainly. When clickbait is basically fake news, if you want to look at it that way. But the problem with social media is that it's personalized. So you might think to yourself, well, that's great that I can go on Twitter and it's personalized just for me. And yes, in theory, that's great. However, what these social media algorithms are doing is we're going to talk about the privacy concerns, but they're collecting every piece of information they can. Not only information you give them, your age, your occupation, etc., what articles you read, what links you're clicking on, and they develop a persona of you that guesses if you're a Democrat or Republican, for example. The problem with that is they are going to continue to serve you the types of materials, articles, videos that you want to see that are going to continue to confirm the biases that you already have. So it's very similar to what we have on television. There's one big difference, though. We can choose to turn on Fox News or CNN or not watch it all. And certainly, you could argue we can choose to be on social media, but for our younger generations, that's not necessarily a choice. I mean, people could argue that it is, but I would disagree. It's a social norm in today's day and age that you're on social media. And these algorithms that exist on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram cause this confirmation bias to just keep happening over and over. So, for example, Brian, if you follow Fox News, it says to Facebook, this person's a Republican.
Yes.
Is that fair?
No, not at all.
Of course it's not fair. And actually what's happening is Facebook is just guessing what it is and who you are. And again, it's not just with politics either. There's tons of social issues that you could talk about. So that's what the research is talking about is how is it fair that algorithms are determining what information is showing up in our news feeds, and then that news feed is playing into the confirmation bias that we continue to have, and there's not going to be a center anymore. You're all going to be very, very far left or very, very far right because of this.
Yeah. Professor Miller, what made you want to present this too? I mean, we talked about the research exhibition, but what struck your interest even before the research exhibition?
Well, I've been working in social media marketing for about a decade, basically since just before I graduated from Shippensburg in 2009. I have worked in social media marketing. I've worked with a variety of different companies, and it's something that I've always been very, very intrigued by after I got out of broadcasting a lot. Obviously I'm still broadcasting now, but social media is something that has struck me. Obviously it's not going anywhere. Social media will be around in some form or another forever. But the problem is that these companies can, day by day, continue to make more money, and that's their end goal. They don't care really what happens to us. Yes. They just care about keeping us on Facebook or Twitter longer so they can give us more ads. I think it's something that, to answer your question directly, I think this is something that people not only need to know about, but need to make changes. Because if this goes unchecked, Facebook is basically going to have a monopoly on everything.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to be developing personas of us that are just not fair.
Yeah. I mean, as many people know, talking about like Facebook being a monopoly, Facebook owns Instagram, and there's other social media sites that own others. So,
well, what's interesting about Facebook is, yes, they do own Instagram. They also own WhatsApp, and they're in the process of potentially buying Snapchat. Now, the problem there is that Facebook has an R&D, research and development team, that basically is scouring for new social media apps all the time, and any of them that get any type of traction, they instantly incorporate whatever it is that social media channel does different. I'll give you an example. Yes, Instagram is owned by Facebook.
Yes.
But for even prior to that, they had Instagram stories. Facebook now has Facebook stories.
Yes, sir.
There were certainly some places that did live.
Yep.
Prior, in fact, I think Periscope was around even prior to Facebook doing Facebook Live. They said, you know what? That Periscope's gaining a lot of traction. Let's just make it so everybody can go live. And so basically they're ripping off any social media channel that is gaining any type of steam at all.
Yep.
So to be honest with you, it's going to be Facebook forever. And when you come to social media, it's just some huge monopoly.
I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. The first thing or the first app I go on when I wake up every morning is Facebook.
I have a routine. I check Facebook first, and I check Twitter while I'm eating my cereal.
Yeah.
But again, that just goes to show you that even people like myself who are extremely skeptical still use it and use it a lot. But I also understand how my news feed is manipulated, and I don't know that many people do.
I mean, and talking about social media, it's a good time to get involved and study about, because I mean, let's not lie. The past couple of years, social media has also had negatives like cyberbullying. All that type of stuff has been involved with social media as well.
You know, I don't want to discredit cyberbullying. It's absolutely a huge concern. But Brian, a lot of the things that we see are just old problems in new context.
Yes.
Bullying has been happening since the beginning of time, and it's just a different way that people bully. And a lot of the problems that we have are not new problems. They're simply just manifesting themselves in a different way. Where I think this is different with the echo chamber is that historically, we've gotten our news from reputable news sources.
Yes.
Newspapers, even our local news, trusted people, even our national news, the Cronkites and the Brokaws of the world, I know a little bit before your time, we could trust them. What gives you any trust in any social media channel, specifically Facebook? They're not trying to be in the middle. They're not trying to, give us news we need.
Yeah.
They're only trying to give us, and this is from a gentleman that wrote a book called The Filter Bubble. His name's Eli Pariser. Information junk food. It's like, here's the example he makes, Brian. What's your favorite dessert?
My favorite, cheesecake.
Okay, so you like a good cheesecake. I like a good 7-layer chocolate cake, right?
Yeah.
Now, we could, if we wanted to, eat that for every meal. We live in America. We could eat that for every meal. Why don't we?
Because it's unhealthy, first of all.
So if we ate cheesecake for every single meal,
we'll start to look like a cheesecake.
We will gain a lot of weight. It is not healthy for us. We understand that we have to consume food in such a way, or else we're going to put on a lot of weight.
And then we'll start looking like how other countries think we look.
So when he's talking about information junk food, that's what he's talking about. Facebook is information junk food, whereas a traditional newspaper is an information diet. You get your serious news, you get your sports news, you get your entertainment news. It's a diet. You're taking stuff that you need to know, you're taking stuff that you want to know. The problem with social media is that it's information junk food. It's like eating that chocolate cake constantly, because all the stuff that we see on there, I don't want to say all, but most of the stuff that we see in our social media feeds is junk. It's garbage. It's not helping us learn anything. It's not helping us learn more about our world around us. A lot of times it's just people complaining. And it's very interesting that people still are much more interested in going on Facebook and seeing what their friend is, pictures of their cat, as opposed to like caring about voting or like social issues that are happening.
Serious things.
So that was Eli Parriser made that point, and that's something that I'll be talking about in my presentation for sure.
Yeah, and a lot of like this social media stuff, like we were just talking about, you've talked about in your classes. A lot of your classes are media based. I mean, the communications program here is public relations, journalism, and a lot of it's starting to become media studies. So, do you want to explain a little bit more about that?
Well, to understand what it's going to take to be a journalist or what it's going to take to be in public relations, there has to be some foundation in media studies. One of our elective classes that we run is Media and Politics, which I'm actually teaching right now. And basically what I'm trying to teach the students is, we all have one particular viewpoint that we have on some of these important issues, but it really is important to check out other sources. I know I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself here, Brian, but I'm going to just tell everybody right now, my conclusion of my presentation is going to be this simple. Start looking in more than one news source.
Definitely.
If you're interested in a topic, if there's something going on, watch Fox News, watch CNN, fall somewhere in the middle. Make up your own mind. Make up your own mind. And that is unfortunately what is happening today, Brian, is that too few people are making up their own mind, and they're just being a parrot of the news organization that they watch.
Yeah, because I mean, we've talked about this and also in your classes and also the other professors' class where you're not going to see many journalists be like, they're not going to, or news sources try to be as, you're going to have your left wing, you're going to have your right wing, because that's where the money's at also. So I think, like you've said, also with media, there's a lot of money to be made in that field.
What's interesting, and we actually had this conversation this morning, the for-profit news model is not ideal.
Yeah.
In fact, I wish there was a better way to do it. There are some nonprofit news organizations out there, but they have their own biases as well. The problem is the alternative to for-profit news entities is government news, which is almost always, and especially in countries with dictatorships, things like that, monarchies, it's propaganda. At least at a minimum, our news typically, depending on the news source, is relatively straight down the line. But then again, depending on what organization is, it might also be biased as well. So news and where you get your news is important, but reading multiple sources is even more important, because a lot of times, a lot of this is just opinion, even though it's not supposed to be.
Yeah. So again, everybody, you can come to the Colloquium Series. It will be at the Capitol Blue Cross Theater at Central Penn College on February 6th at 12:30. There's also going to be 2 scholarships awarded, which is pretty cool, Professor Miller.
One thing I love about this is sponsored by the Central Penn College Education Foundation.
Sandy does an excellent job, her and Mary Beth.
And I got to tell you that number one, February the 4th, just 2 days before my Colloquium Series, they will be opening their essay contest. And please make sure that you're doing that. But the Education Foundation does sponsor this. We will be giving away 2 scholarships. I do not know who those students are, so I'll be surprised as well. So that will be done at the beginning of the Colloquium Series. And then I'll be on for about 30 minutes, 30 to 35 minutes. And then we'll have a Q&A after, and there's pizza. So if nothing else, come learn something about social media and take some pizza and soda home with you.
Yeah, so... All right, everybody. Again, I know I've said this twice already, but February 6th at 12:30 at the Capitol Blue Cross Theater, there's going to be 2 scholarships awarded by the Education Foundation, and Professor Paul Miller, instructor of media studies and the communication program coordinator, will be giving a presentation on the social media echo chamber. Professor Miller, thank you again for giving us your time today.
Brian, you're the man. This was off the charts. It's interesting that this is only the 3rd time in the history of the Nightly News podcast that I did not host, and you have 2 of those.
Yeah.
So I got to give you credit. This was an excellent show, and thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for listening to the Nightly News Podcast.